welcome to the first technical session, Insights for ArcGIS-driven Decisions. So this particular session will give you an idea about data analytics powered by location. So with abundance of products coming from Esri, why is then another one focusing solely on analysis? So there are many reasons. So one of them is that we already have a very awesome GIS professional desktop product called ArcGIS Desktop. But how about those people who doesn't understand much about GIS rather than the GIS professionals? And what about those larger organizations around the GIS professionals who they wanted to know a bit more about GIS and they wanted to do it by themselves, to have that spatial thinking aspect. But they are frustrated because they are only using analytics tools, which couldn't give them that spatial aspect. So a person's role, title, or skill set actually shouldn't really matter in this case. And to remove this frustration and to educate that spatial is in fact spatial. It is not only, location is not only a visualization on a map or a chart. It's in fact an additional dimension for you to trigger additional thought, ask additional questions. And there's a lot of things that you can actually do with that. So a workspace whereby spatial and non-spatial data will come into place to utilize the geographical analytics tools for people across roles, titles, and skill set is required. And that's why we are here today, because of the ArcGIS insights. So your GIS professionals will now get more business perspective, while your business users will get the co-relationships from the spatial insights. And different organizations and users, they have different preferences. Some of it like it on cloud, some of it like it on-premise. So Esri has hear you, and hence we now support both types of deployment, giving you flexibility, like ArcGIS Online for the cloud deployment, and ArcGIS Enterprise for on-premise deployment. And we were talking about answering complex questions. We need to first understand about the intersection between data and analysis process. So it used to be that the analyst is given, they will define what and how the data should be collected, and then they will carry out the analysis process. But now analysts is given the data and they must wrangle it into the form that they wanted so that the analysis process can be done to find value. So with location data in combination with other dimensions such as time, product, customer data, census data come into play, you can give the business users more context to answer increasingly complex business questions in their context, in their environment. So more contextual data, what will it give you? It will give the business users faster and better decision making and reduce the time and effort to manually analyze the data, and of course support cross-department collaboration across the organization on a common GIS platform. And Insights is not just an JavaScript app. It's in fact a full stack system within a system, providing you with business insights at your self-service. The analytic workflow that we're trying to show here will address through the spectrum to be discussed. So how many folks doing analysis today will spend loads of time waggling with data so that they can work with it? Insights allows you to connect and work with data directly, at least raw form, and even Excel files. And geo-enablement, what is it? It's basically taking our data, giving it a spatial meaning, and creating spatial info from it. So if you ask me, I do not have any spatial information. So what can you do? You can join it with other spatial types like administrative boundaries, and voila, you have something specialized for your use. And of course, you need to show it not only on a map, but also across charts, tables. And what the key thing here is about interactivity and consistency. So different analysis tools are also provided by Insights for you to answer different types of questions. So, and Esri keeps on evolving insights along these patterns like statistical analysis, spatial analysis, and record and repeat analysis. So from 2016, the first release up to now, we have 10 major releases, and this tells you that Esri keeps on listening to you, understand your needs, and aligning your requirements to what we produce. And finally, sharing is caring. You want to share your knowledge to breed more knowledge and better results, keeping your organization ecosystem healthy and progressive. And that's really what we want to achieve at the end of the day. Insights is designed to be highly interactive and intuitive. So life is very complicated. So we don't want to complicate your life with more hidden menus, toolbars. So we want to allow you to work with data directly. You can see from this animation that anything you can see on Insights, you can drag, you can touch it, you can perform actions with it on the go easily. So nothing beats more than a demo. And we'll now pass on to Virgil to take it up from here. Virgil, please.
Thanks, Benny. Can we have the thing? So before we start, can I have a quick show of hands? How many of you guys deal with data in this format on a daily basis when you look at Excels in your office? I'm pretty sure, okay, one, but we just all had lunch, but okay, around half. So this is how we've traditionally been looking at data, and definitely how we will be looking at data for the foreseeable future. Insights is not going to drastically change how you deal with data, but what the tool can do for you instead is give you tremendous contextual value, as well as allowing you to enrich the data using a variety of external sources, both either demographic from government agencies or data you might have purchased or generated from your own firm. If you were here in the morning, my colleague Abhijit presented the same use case, which is a HDB real sale transaction pricing analysis. So for this session, we'll be a little more technical. I'll show you step by step how you create it, and as well as showing you a little bit more about the different tools to visualize data to suit different business audiences, as well as a glimpse of predictive analytics that some of you data science out there might be interested. So here we have the data. This is the same data that the morning HTTP presentation we're using. So typically, one transaction is one row, and you have typically the address, the per square feet price, the area, all of the standard real estate stuff. So to add data, you simply click Add. So what I just showed you is a standard CSV Excel file. You just basically drag your file into here, and this Insight will pick up all of the attributes as you defined in Excel. So it's a good practice to clean this up before you do anything, especially if you have a date. You make sure the date is correctly identified, and all your numerical variables and continuous variables are identified correctly as a number here. So so you can see some other layers. So you can also add other data from your colleagues. So for example, here we have some data we prepared that can be prepared on desktop as well as ArcGIS Online. So ArcGIS can read all of it. Living Atlas is a curated library of demographic data that's prepared by Esri, and some of them consume credit, but there's some really good data in there. What you're seeing right now here is the 3.0 release for ArcGIS Online version of the Insights. So if you are deploying this on Portal, connection to databases will be supported in addition to the standards here. So right now we're supporting SAP HANA, Oracle, all of that. So for this presentation, we'll be using a Excel file to show you how versatile the tool can be. So the first thing I can do is simply, so this is the Excel file that was directly imported. And if I just have an X and Y coordinate for each of the transaction, so we geocode that, then we simply can visualize all the transactions on the map by dragging the resale price per square feet into here. So by default, the price will be the size will be indication of how pricey your per square feet your unit is. So I'll just quickly change the average. So this way it gives you a really consistent, standardized measurement. So this already gives you a quite generic look at how the pricing intensity changes with location context. And what we can do further from here is we can, so a lot of you guys who's using Excel are very accustomed to making charts and graphics, all kinds of beautiful charts. So we'll do the same here, but there's a twist, that is the interactivity of them. So for example, first we want to look at the seasonality of the sales, for example. We can simply find the month and then do a by month breakdown for all 4 years that the data is available. So for example, if you want to look at a specific year, what you can do is simply do a filter here. And then let's look at 2017, since that's the most recent complete year we can look at. So this gives you a breakdown in terms of sales volume. And if you click on any of it, it will basically filter the map for you and highlight the transactions for the for that month. And if you take out the filter, it will show you the whole island again. So what's new in 3.0 is where you can add a filter into the user interface directly. And you can do a month filter here as well, in which way you don't have to. So if you are building this dashboard for a seasonality analysis that you perform regularly, you'll be able to just do a filter here, do a filter panel here, and it will automatically change it. So of course, this will right now be a whole column. So with that out of the way, so right now we're talking about how we can add context to your data. And we can also dig deeper into looking at how exactly pricing and the specific attributes can drive the pricing of a unit. So to do that, we can look at, for example, most of the time we look at flat type, which is the number of bedrooms, as well as floor level, story range in this case. But common sense tells us that these two were the two main drivers of a property price. So to give us a comprehensive view, we can utilize this amazing tool called heat chart, which will bring out a beautiful chart colored by how expensive the unit is on the per square feet level. So all of these, the shading of course represent how pricey it is. So what we can do with this chart is, if you are looking at properties, if you are a real estate agent, you are analyzing the market and you are trying to find out the pricing characteristic of a specific range of category of units. It can also be a requirement that your client specifically told you, okay, I want a 2-bedroom. I'm looking at somewhere around between 7 and 12. Then you can basically check this, and then not only will this seasonality chart now update to tell you which months the sales are happening, the maps will also update to show you the where they are located. So speaking of transaction volume, what we can also do is we can do an amazing visualization tool called heat map. So heat map, if you're using ArcGIS Pro, you might be familiar with it. It's basically a point density based tool that will, in our case, show us very visually where the most amount of transaction is happening. So by having both maps right next to each other, if we just drag this next to here, we can not only examine the pricing intensity, but at the same time, we can look at whether or not this is an area where a lot of sales is happening. So you can have a quantitative and qualitative view on your data, on your transaction data. So if you are a still a very tabular person, Insight will still be able to help you look at your properties on a very Excel friendly way. So what you can do is you can pick some specific attributes you want to look at, and the price. Then you can do a table. So this is very much the way we are accustomed to looking at data. And as you might have guessed, this will share the same interactivity capabilities as the other cards. If you want to examine your data in this way, you can still filter everything based on this. It will pick out a unit for you. The same way, if you are selecting the units based on floor level and flat type, you can filter here. Then you turn on cross filter here. Then the list will update it for you. So in terms of productivity tool, it's a very great way to just do some kind of exploratory market research. So now I'm going to share with you some beautiful charts that I prepared beforehand, which takes time to run. So I will walk you through how we can enrich data. So what we have here is the LTA data for bus stop and MRT axis. These are ready to use geospatial shapefiles you can directly get from LTA. You just simply add them to your organization, then you can directly pull them again from either your organization or your group. So what I did is, so say if you already picked out a few units based on the criteria that we just showed, and you're looking at, say, the units in Pongo, which is, give it a little minute, which is these ones we're looking at here. So now we want to look at the qualitative factors that might drive the price of a unit, which in most of the cases is accessibility. So we want to see how accessible this is to MRT stations and to bus stops. What we did, and what we can do is we can do a working time buffer around the MRT stations. So right now you can drill one level further and find out not only just based on floor level flat type, but also you can pick up the ones that satisfies both the qualitative numeric requirement as well as the ones that's close to MRT. So you just need to basically pick out those ones that's in the shading, which is the buffer. So with that, so if you want to, so for those of you who's talking about predictive analytics, the work we've done so far is all descriptive analytics, which means we are examining the data from the past to find out the pattern. So we can also look at the data to find out what the price might go. Depends on a specific, it depends on a variable you want to study. So here, for those of you with data science out there, is a scatter plot. The scatter plot basically will tell you the pricing movement. So what we have here is we are still studying the total price, not unit price, total price. So common sense will tell us area in square area will drive the total pricing up proportionally. But what we can find out more using a scatter plot is where exactly each kind of unit falls. So the four colors you see here is again the flat type. So we can see a very distinct divide between the 5 types of units, where the executive buildings will be much more expensive proportionally than the one bed. So that's validating our assumption. But what you can do with this, you can pick out the outliers. So for example, this one right here, I'm looking at a unit that is 1,200 square feet and total priced at 590K. So this one is a very overpriced unit that you might want to avoid recommending to your client, where if you want to pick up this one, it will be a very value buy. So you can start your analytics from here, then you look at the map to identify where that price is. And again, all of the other charts will tell you the context surrounding all of these data. So what we did just with one spreadsheet, as you can see here, is tenfold. You can derive multiple aspects of location intelligence from just enable location on them. So that concludes my presentation. Hopefully it added more knowledge to what you heard this morning in depth. And now I'm going to hand back to Benny to give you some concluding notes.
Thank you, Would you? So what's next? So very excited to share about what's new, some of the new features. So we have listened to user feedbacks.
5 minutes.
There will be more controls on visuals, like colors on the charts, on the map, symbols. So symbols can be changed through the legend by clicking on the symbol and then you're choosing the colors from the color palette. There will be also more calculate fields functions, like for example, growth rates, changes across time. And then you can choose these fields and apply your functions as well as your operators. So what's good about this is that it only appears on your workbook. So any changes you have done through these calculate fields functions, it will not mess up your table structures or data sets. And advanced filters is applying more granular function logic to filter your data sets and to give you those records that you want to see. And there's less learning curve because we are using SQL expressions. And of course, public sharing is now available for you to share your pages to the public. So as much as citizens or to a lower end, it could be your own customer base. So to view and interact with the publicly shared pages, you do not need to spend a single penny. You can just use anonymous access. That's just fine. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the analytics journal. So Insights now give you more control to use your organization colors, logos, options for your share analysis results. You can share it like an interactive report to your management. You can change your page settings, background colors, and modify and manage these settings across cards, pages, and charts. So there are also widgets like the rich text card where you can add your rich text, hyperlinks, images, videos, etc. And there's also a new KPI chart showing your data gauges to evaluate your statuses and comparing it with a target, minimum, or maximum value. So this is meant for interactive and static viewing of your results within your workbook. You can then share it as a theme or template for future references. So solution mix-wise, to use Insights for ArcGIS, as what shows by Virju, you will need to have an ArcGIS online subscription for his demo just now. And to perform analysis like what he did, you need to require a level 2 NIM user license. So here are some resources giving you some head start on Insights. It also includes some links to FAQs on Insights deployed on online or on-premise. So it's not about what we say we can do, but also what global users are doing and why they are doing. So some examples, we have the Bavarian State of Administration, where they oversee issues ranging from public safety to transportation, and they need a strategic tool to help them analyze their data, drive accountability, support decision making. So Insights give them exactly that comprehensive view on KPIs and used to highlight regional disparity on the road infrastructure and allow them to apply tools to analyze the changes over time, relationships, correlations. And next we have Horry County, South Carolina. So it's not only a residential area, but it's also a vacation destination where population can go up to 2 million during the summer. So they wanted to find out the fluctuations in the revenue and how it affects their tourism business. And they use Insights to find patterns and make predictions on the failure or success of their tourism business based on location analysis. And we have Opelika Utilities. So they have, their mission is to supply the constant supply of water to citizens and industries, but non-operation meters, or what they call the dead meters, has caused them lost revenues. So they use Insights to find out about the dead meters and also to identify manufacturers' trends and issues with specific meters. So as a result, they have identified hundreds of dead meters and recover $25,000 per month, and that's $3,000 per annum. So after sharing all this, if you'd like to kickstart with Insights for ArcGIS, we have already started a new course called Getting Started with insights for ArcGIS. So this training will enable you to define a workflow to investigate your spatial problem, apply your analysis tools, and then share your insights across the organization. So this slide will mark the end of our presentation. Thank you very much.
We can take some questions now for 5 minutes. So thanks so much for your undivided attention. So if you have any questions, please let our MC know. We'll gladly pass the mic to you. If you, can we switch it back to the demo so that people can?
Hi. So any questions from the floor? I think that was a great presentation on how Esri actually evolves and cater to the analytics users. So any questions that you have, you might want to ask. Yes, let me pass the mic to you.
Hi, thanks for your presentations. My question is, say if I have an Excel spreadsheet and I have multiple sheets inside that spreadsheet, so but individual sheet is corresponding to each other. Will you suggest me to combine it into per record for one row?
It depends if those two tables has any relational. So speak of this in the relational database terms. So if you have the completely same data, then of course it's suggested that you combine them. But if you are having two sets of different data sharing one common attribute, say for example in our case here, we might have another maintenance data for each of the units that also share the same transaction ID. I will treat them as different table. Then here I can basically you can add a relationship between the two sheets that share any common attributes or common identifiers. So it really depends on your use case if you want to treat them separately to identify them individually, or of course if you're looking at the exact same schema, then you should combine them and then import. Same goes for if you're connecting from database, then you will be reading tables directly, so that will be easier. But once you import, you might need to recreate those relationships if you have defined them in your database. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I just had a question around limitations of data. Are there any restrictions around number of records and data types that you can use in Insights, like 3D or similar?
There is no restriction on how many numbers you can bring in, but the visualization, I believe there is a cap of 500K for the map in this case for here. So Insight will tell you down here that there's too many data, that some of them is omitted. But in terms of, so you might need to filter them or do a sample selection before you import it. But in terms of the analytics, the charts you see here, it will be all performed assuming the full set of data.